cemetery district?
Oh, because we have the third. Although
Could that count?
Instead of doing it under there?
my issue with it is even though there is no direct conflict, I think there's a perception of
Well, you can just.
okay, he was employed by them before.
But she's not now.
I was just gonna
No.
There's no conflict.
I know there's no conflict,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
but I think there's still perceived that she owes
Okay.
11.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the first San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority meeting of the 2017 calendar year. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get our meeting started because I know Borges is running late, so I want to make sure that everybody else gets to see that too when he rolls in 5 minutes late.
Oh, wait, Nathan's here. Nathan's got to come up.
Nathan's here.
Oh,
So
Nathan's here.
Nathan's sitting up top.
Come on.
And you're actually on time, so good for you.
Not in that outfit, you can. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we'll now move on to item number 2 on our agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. So we're going to be led this morning by Supervisor Worthley.
All right. Please rise and join me in saluting our flag. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we're going to move on to item number 3, which is roll call. Rhonda?
Supervisor Vanderpool,
Present.
Supervisor Pacheco,
Here.
Supervisor Worthley,
Here.
Supervisor Mendez, Supervisor Magsig,
Here.
Supervisor Crocker,
Here.
Supervisor Borges.
All right, we do have a quorum. We're now going to move on to item number 4, which is SJVIA Director questions, announcements, and activity reports. Real quick, I'd just like the new faces to go ahead and introduce themselves if they would. We congratulate you on your election and welcome you to the boards of supervisors in your respective counties, but we in Tulare County would love to hear from Fresno County, and I'm sure Fresno County will be the same. So go ahead, Nathan.
Sure. My name is Nathan Magsig, and I want to introduce Seth Ramirez, who is my field representative, who's here with me today as well. So I'm excited to be here. I represent District 5 in Fresno County, which is basically eastern Fresno County. A lot of communities in that area, and I believe it's the largest district geographically. As far as my background goes, spent a lot of time in city government. Been the mayor of Clovis and on the council there for a number of years. And prior to that, I was a field representative and spent a lot of time here in Tulare County representing the 29th Assembly District at that time. So I'm a licensed general contractor and excited to be here representing all of you. Thank you.
Kyler Crocker, represent the 1st District, Tulare County, Alan Ashida's former district, which includes the eastern portions of the county for the most part. Sequoia National Park, or a good portion of it. Supervisor Worthley and I split that. And Lindsay, Exeter, Farmersville, and the east side of Visalia. I live in Strathmore. I've got a small farm with my family, and I previously worked for Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and you could use a lot of other acronyms for PG&E, but we'll stick with the official one. So,
Don't talk too much about PG&E in Fresno County, though. That's kind of a bad thing. Sensitive subject. All right, okay.
You're going to ask Brian about that.
All right. We'll now move on to Supervisor Worthley. Supervisor Pacheco, any comments or anything? The only comment that I would make is I would like to direct staff for our next meeting. I know that it is something that's been requested by previous SJVIA board members in the past. I would like to see a presentation. It should be very simple. I've had some of these calculations run for Tulare County on our health benefits consulting side, but I would like to see for both Fresno County, Tulare County, and as well as all other entities combined, the calculations and on a sheet since the inception of the SJVIA, how much in premiums have been paid in by the entity and how much in claims have been taken out and I'd like to see just how that reflects upon each of our counties and the SJVI as a whole. So I'd like to see that at the next meeting. Thank you for that. Now we'll move on to item number 5, which is a request to approve the agenda that we have before us.
Motion to approve.
Welcome to the meeting, Supervisor Borges. Thanks for being here. We have a motion by Director Worthley to approve the agenda.
Second.
A second by Director Crocker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The agenda is approved. We will now move on to item 6, which is public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on today's agenda. Public comment can and will be limited to 3 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak under public comment? Okay. Seeing no one, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board. We'll move on to item number 7, which is a request to approve the meeting minutes from the December 8th, 2016 meeting.
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion by Director Worthley,
Second.
second by Director Pacheco. All those in favor? It is an action item. Anybody have any comments on meeting minutes? Okay, motion stands. Please vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. I'm used to pressing the button and having to say please vote, so sorry. Now we'll move on to item number 8, which is an information item. Receive an update from the Auditor Treasurer on cash flow projections. Lawrence, with a haircut.
Significant.
It was time to streamline it and make it simpler to keep up. I was getting tired of taking care of it, to be honest with you. Lawrence Seymour, County of Fresno Auditor Controller's Office, here to present the update on cash flow projections. As I discussed at the last board meeting, we had just come out of a period of relative stability in the agency where basically the number of entities in was stable for a period of about 18 to 20 months, and therefore we had a good basis for cash flow projections up through December of 2016. However, the exodus of the entities that occurred effective December 31st really meant that the past data wasn't really going to be indicative of the future. So therefore, what we had to do is basically kind of reinvent our cash flow projections. And when we did so, we took the opportunity to go to a more finite and granular detail and actually do so with daily projections out. So what we've done is the chart on page 2 includes actual information through January 31st. So those are actual cash balances per day. And then using that information and historic trends, we're able to project the claims side. We've also included a component within the projections for claims runout as a result of the entities leaving. Now, the reason we only took it out to the end of April was because we found out between now and December that Sutter County was going to be leaving, and we don't yet have a good estimate for what their claims runout was going to be or will be. Therefore, we didn't want to project out any further because we knew we were going to have the effect of that claims runout and the fact that Sutter would be leaving. Now, it is our goal to work with the vendor consultant and get a claims runout projection for Sutter County and very short order update this and take this cash flow projection out through the end of the year. You'll note, however, that given the information we have, there's a strong indication that we're going to need to utilize the remaining $2 million of loans that have currently been authorized. Any questions?
So these projections do not include or reflect the authorized loans, the additional authorized loans.
The additional $2 million that is currently authorized is not in these cash flow projections.
Okay, Lawrence, but I think, well, you're not making it clear, though.
Yes, sir.
Each county has already submitted $2 million each.
Correct.
In addition, in December, Fresno authorized an additional up to $3 million.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you're stating that as of today, you've used the $3 million authorized by Fresno.
That is correct.
Okay,
There's
so I
total
think
up.
my colleagues on the board should understand that Fresno has put in $5 million, Tulare has put in $2 million, because we authorized that. So there's only the $2 million left from Tulare. But as an act of good faith and as a good partner, we didn't go, we'll put in $1 million, you put in $1 million, and go through all that. We just did it.
Correct.
Okay? All right. I think that's a little more clear. So Fresno's put in $5 million. Tulare has put in $2 million. So we have a total of $7 million that we've added up till this point to keep us solvent.
That is correct.
Okay. So we're all on the same page now.
We're at 7, looking going towards 9.
Going towards 9, yeah, that's the unfortunate deal.
That is
At
correct.
7, looking to, and so you're telling us, as of today, you believe we'll need the additional 2 from Tulare,
Correct.
so that Fresno will be in at 5 and Tulare will be in at 4 to keep this solvent for our membership.
And keep in mind that even that amount, an additional $2 million, will only stabilize what you see here before you. There's no provision for the Sutter County claims runout. They have approximately 800 members, 850 members in the PPO. So it's
And then
Our
when
risk.
is the last month of Sutter?
Sutter's last payment. Their last involvement will be April. So
So we'll have to go through May.
May. Their claims runout will begin in May, and likely carry through to some degree through the fall of 2017.
Oh, that far to get reimbursed, huh?
The majority of the claims runout will occur in the very first month. Percentages provided by the previous vendor. There's another chart in the presentation, if you'd go to page 3, that breaks down the claims runout from the entities that termed as of 12/31/16. One more page. There we go. So as you can see, the bulk of the claims runout will occur in May, approximately 64%, 68%. And then it decreases significantly because, doctors that provide services want to get paid. Most of your RX is done electronically, so that the claims runout for RX usually happens within the first or second invoice after an entity leaves. So there is a strong possibility that in addition to the $2 million authorized, there will be a need for additional funding in May.
Absent any changes on the expense side of
Correct.
what we're paying currently. Sure.
Just a question. So, looking at between Fresno and Tulare, there's about 9,100 members. Sutter represents about 900 members, so about a tenth. Has there been any analysis done looking at the fact that we're bleeding right now, bleeding revenue pretty heavily? Do we have any indication if Sutter is causing some of that bleed, or is it still unknown where a majority of this is coming from?
The bulk of the data that we deal with in the auditor's office for these projections is really distilled aggregate information. We don't have the individual, I'd love to give you an answer, but we don't necessarily have the individual per entity claims.
And Nathan, to answer that question, that was kind of what I was requesting at the very beginning, and I think that breakdown would be very helpful. I mean, I've seen some preliminary numbers, but I would just like to see it and have it presented before this whole board so that we really know who is causing the bleeding.
I think that one of the things that we can do, since Tulare and Fresno, we represent, a bulk, and we always have been a bulk of all the members within the group. I think we can at least focus on ourselves first and say, look, are we causing 3/4 or 80% of the bleed proportional to what we make up of this group, or is it a lot more? And that will tell us if some of these other member agencies were either helping or hurting us as far as their liabilities go with the members they have. So one of the things that I would suggest, in addition to the chairman, what he suggested, is for us to first look at ourselves, because we can do that immediately, because we have the data for ourselves right now when we make up the bulk of this plan. So if we find that we're actually causing all, or our partners are reducing the bleed amount by them being partners with us, then that tells us that the problem really is in our court.
Correct.
Yep. All right. Any further questions or comments regarding this agenda item?
I just want to know when he's going to show up with some good news for us.
You're going to be. Don't hold your breath because you're not going to make it. All right. We're going to move on now to item number 9, which is a request to receive and file the Auditor Treasurer's second quarter 2016-2017 financial report.
Good morning, Board. Lawrence Seymour once again. First page of the report you have before you is the P&L that breaks down all of the cash inflows and outflows for the agency. You'll notice that year to date the revenues are trending above budget. That was primarily due to actions taken by County of Fresno last summer to go from being in arrears to in advance, basically a pay period. And that's the bulk of that increase in receipts for the first 6 months. As a result of having those extra premiums paid, there were additional fixed costs, i.e. administration, stop loss payments, and those kinds of things, which is why we're 9% over our fixed cost expenses for the 6 months. The big driver that we've all spent a lot of time talking about, obviously, is the fact that, line item 11 down there, our claims cost, we've overspent our budget in claims disbursements by $11 million through the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Moving on to the second page of the report, you have it's a detailed breakdown of where the administrative costs are going. By department. You'll note that there's no wellness communication going on. Those programs were defunded a year or more ago. Last page of the report is the cash flow statement, which basically just takes raw data off the bank statements and puts it on, go one up, and breaks it down on a month-by-month basis so that you can see the trends. You'll note that December receipts were a little over $23 million. That was primarily that increase was primarily caused by the additional loan amount from the County of Fresno that was already discussed. And on the final page, you've got the balance sheet. The significant item there, obviously, is the $13 million negative net position, which basically means we have $13 million more in bills than we have resources to pay for them. You asked for some good news. As a result of the number of members decreasing, one of the line items on this balance sheet, that non-current asset that we talked about in the prior period, where it's an advance with Anthem Blue Cross for capitated claims, because the number of HMO lives is decreased, there's going to be a future credit of about $250,000 as a result of a reduction in that.
Better than nothing, but we're still looking for 9. Yeah,
I understand. Well,
I do have a question, Lawrence, if I might, Mr. Chairman. On going back to the first part of it, on the Kaiser Permanente, I thought we were just a pass-through in that situation, so I'm curious how we have a negative $500,000 there, $576,000.
It's
Is it a timing issue?
It's not. No, it's not a time. It could be a timing issue. However, you keep in mind that when we put the budget together, the prior vendor put the budget together. It was based on a snapshot what enrollment was at a point in time.
Right.
So if there were any additional lives gained or lost during the year, they didn't go back in and true it up or adjust it month to month. The other thing is remember we talked about the County of Fresno making an additional payment. Well, there would be additional fixed cost with that as well because they went from in arrears to in advance. So there was an additional fixed cost payment, and in that would have been Kaiser Permanente cost for those County of Fresno employees that are in that program. So basically there was an additional premium payment because of timing, because County of Fresno went from being in arrears to in advance.
But that would show a credit as opposed to a debit, would it not?
No, it would be an increase. So then the negative variance, you'll note that the budget for Kaiser was set at let me pull it up here, $12 million for the 6-month period, 12.9, and it came in at 13.4. So that extra $500,000 was either due to timing, increases in number of people in Kaiser, and likely the additional payment by Fresno County that drove the premium side up. But every time there's a premium payment, there's fixed costs that go out. Those fully insured plans, your vision, your dental, your Kaiser, they go out when the transmittal's processed. Okay, the remaining balance sits in the banks to cover claims for those plans where SJVIA retains the risk. The difference between a fully insured and self-insured plan.
Dr. Maxey?
We did have a shift in Kaiser enrollment last year, which would have showed up in January of 2016. And we had a shift of about 400 members that for the Fresno that went from HMO into the Kaiser. So that wasn't necessarily projected, and that's why you have that variance between actual and projected.
So again, just looking at our position as of December 31st, 2016, as I look at this, looking at the assets and then looking at the total, the unrestricted net deficit there, as you combine those together, it reduces it to a little above $1 million. I assume the liabilities also include the $7 million loan that we gave.
Correct. The non-current liabilities line of $7.8 million is made up of the $7 million in loans plus some startup costs from way back at startup.
So what I'm looking at too is just cash as well, and so I know that we've burned. While we have this huge liability, we've burned through quite a bit of cash. So both we're carrying a lot of debt, and a lot of it's to ourselves, but also cash is getting burned as well, and that's why we're going to need an infusion of cash here in short order based upon your projections. Right. I think it's important for us to. We don't have any other startup expenses that we're not recognizing here on our statement of net position, correct? There's nothing separate and apart from when SJVIA was formed where we are holding the bag on any other expenses, startup expenses. All of this is pretty much reflective of everything that we've done since inception, correct?
What I would say to that is the staff that are involved have charged their time. At inception, that was not so. Probably more time was, I'll say, donated at the time. So, but in recent years, it's been charged. But there's been no effort or determination of charging that back. So what you see here is reflective of that. There's no further charges.
And the only reason for that question is cash is very important to me, but also making sure that we identify what our true losses are so that in the future, if we need to, if there's some kind of a claim that we need to make, that we are ready with our ask of what we believe our actual losses are. That's all.
Okay. Any further questions? All right. Thank you for that presentation, Lawrence.
Need a motion to receive and file?
No, it's just an information item. Next, we're going to go on to item number 10, which is a request to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2016-2017, and this is an action item.
I'm going to begin the presentation. Rhonda Schustrom, Assistant SJVIA Manager, and I'll be calling on potentially Larry Gomez from Fresno County, who's lost his voice, but may be able to provide some of the details since he did a lot of the work on it. This is, before you, is the request to adopt our 2016-17 fiscal year budget. We have in the past brought a budget to you and adopted it earlier in the fiscal year, and then brought back for adjustment. This budget provides spending authority for the SJVIA, and we will be coming back probably with another adjusted budget because there's some action that your board may be taking today, such as there's an item on for consultant services. What the current budget contains is our current agreement and cost for consultant services, and depending upon your board's action, there could be a savings, so we actually would be decreasing what we've projected in the budget in the future, depending upon action today. So this budget revises our revenue and expense projections to $137,000 and $139,000 for 2016-17.
37 million, right?
I'm sorry, million. And it does represent an operating loss of $2.1 million. The budget amount does not include the effect of our additional loan proceeds that we've received in 2016-17.
Nor does it include any repayment of debt back to
Correct.
the counties.
We have not done any type of repayment plan or assessment for the loans. On page 1 of the attachment, it details out our revenue, what we're projecting at this point as our revenue and expenses for our fixed costs, which we have already incurred some fixed costs in terms of the various insurances that we pay out, our ACA reinsurance fees, our ongoing consulting fees to Chimenti Associates, as well as our claims expenses. And the final page 2 shows a definition of the various line items for our new board members. And then we've also attached the 15-16 fiscal budget. So we would ask for approval of the budget, which provides staff with spending authority.
And also this is subject to any changes that may happen subsequent to this action. So if we
Correct.
select a different consultant, then that cost is going to be different there. Okay. Any questions or comments from directors? At this time, Chair will entertain a motion. This is an action item. Is there any public comment regarding the budget? Okay, seeing none, back to the board. I have a motion from Director Borges.
Second.
Second by Director Worthley. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We're now going to move on to item number 11. This is a request to receive the final results of the RFP for consulting services.
Morning, Board. Paul Nerlin, SJVIA Manager. As your board directed, the staff went through an RFP process for consultant and brought it down to finalists, for which 2 of your colleagues participated in finalist interviews. We also had auditor-treasurer representation in those finalist interviews. In going through that process, I think we had some good choices in front of us, but you'll see before you today, our recommendation is to make a change to Keenan as the consultant for the SJVIA. You'll see a difference in the way this is charged. So just to kind of back up, especially for the new board members, the consultant for the SJVIA has served as more than a consultant. They've also helped with the administration of the SJVIA, and there are some components they've been involved with. Some of the key things that were looked at in this process is coming to the SJVIA with solid recommended solutions dealing with the situation we're in today. And the finalist interviews, and I know some of the board members heard, very good solutions that I think we're very confident that Keenan can hit the ground running with some solutions for the SJVIA. You'll notice a change in the way fees are charged. We used to charge, or rather the prior consultant charged on a per employee per month basis, $375 per employee per month. This is now on a flat fee basis, so practically it's about half the cost, not just because we have fewer members, but even if we didn't, that would be a flat fee cost, about $292,200 per year. It is a 3-year agreement. It does allow for extensions based on performance. There's a couple representatives of Keenan here today. The primary representative who would probably work with his account is out of the country today, Borden Darm. Some of you have seen him here before, but this is our recommendation before you today and can take any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments from directors? Any comments, questions from members of the public? Here we have one request. Please come forward. Both microphones work,
okay.
so you can state your
Thank
name
you,
and
sir.
address for the record.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Mark Cardoza. I'm a road equipment operator with the County of Fresno, here on my own time. But anyway, the issue I have is, in my opinion, and I've researched it, Aon's the best fit. They're worldwide. They have vast experience. And I don't have a horse in this race except I get the insurance to you guys. So They have vast JPA experience. Also, we're here, and you guys are bleeding. I mean, we're all bleeding, really, because somehow you're going to have to get the loan money back. But what I'm saying, we got here by Gallagher having everything. County of Fresno, SJVIA. There's going to be conflicts, especially like for you, Tulare. You know, are you going to be left out because they're going to do what benefits Fresno County? To me, in your position, I'd want a different, have Aon, Fresno County can have Keenan, but I want somebody, with the sole SJVIA's interest at heart. No conflicts, because, we're here for a reason, because we're bleeding. We're all going to bleed. And eventually, a lot of it's going to come back to the employee. So what I'm saying, even though it may cost a little bit more initially, but if I was severely bleeding, I'd want the best surgeon. Because if you're dead, you're dead. You know what I'm saying? and we're all bleeding, so that's my opinion. And I met with Brent from Aon, very good man. So, and you guys used him to do the audit too. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
Sharon, I was not a part of that subcommittee, but I know you had reported back to us and felt very strongly that Keenan made the best presentation. Aon was there, I believe, that they were one of the finalists. So I appreciate the comment by the gentleman, but there was a lot more research done on this matter, and I very much support the position of the subcommittee.
Okay. Do you have any comments or anything from?
Just I served on the subcommittee and felt it was a good pick. There were a lot of good qualified companies, but cost has a lot to do with it too, and some are just pretty much out of the price range. And so I'm pretty much of a value buyer, and I believe this is the best value for our money here.
And I too was on the subcommittee, had proposals from 3 companies, and they all did a great job presenting. In fact, our previous consultant or our current consultant had some great ideas, which I was curious as to why they were not implemented when they were the consultant. But that being said, after going through the process, I felt very confident in what is before us today. I think that making the selection of Keenan will be very good for this authority, and they will help steer us in a better direction. And in response to the public comment that was made, Tulare County does have our own independent consultant that we have consulting us on our health and benefit plans. And I think that they're doing a great job in being involved with and looking over all of the SJVIA material as well, and giving us guidance and advice on the Tulare County side, which we certainly bring forward here to this meeting. So I feel very comfortable as well with the current recommendation.
Without further regard, I would make a motion to approve the recommendation.
All right, I have a motion from Director Worthley. Second from Director Crocker. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're going to now move on to item number 12, which is a request to receive an update on member entity termination notifications.
Board, Paul Nerlin again. Just this is a report only, and I think you've heard some of this, but this is just keeping track of basically those entities that remain. And we've already talked about the biggest change you see on here, which is the County of Sutter. But at the top of the second page of that item, you'll see those that remain. City of Ceres, Marysville, and Waterford are the non-founding participating entities that still participate with County of Fresno and Tulare. As Supervisor Magsig indicated, obviously the bulk of membership is still with the SJVI for the founding members. So although it looks we had many entities leave, we have a large number with the founding members. But that is where we stand today. Just echoing what was discussed with Lawrence in the cash flow presentation. One of the other reasons that Keenan was picked is there's an urgency here, obviously, with the issues in front of us, including the entities that left and the claims run out. So we will be finalizing that contract as soon as possible, getting their eyes on, they've seen this, all the information that they can, so we come forward with solid recommendations based on what we see in front of us. But any questions you may have?
Comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 13, which is a request to approve the proposed participation agreement revisions. And you can finish that sentence. I don't want to read your whole agenda item.
Morning again. So item 13, we've come to your board a few times talking about recommended revisions to the participation agreements. And for the two new board members, just to explain how this was set up and how we may want to change it. Both the founding entities and the non-founding participating entities executed participation agreements with the SJVIA. That did not make them members of the JPA. That just indicated that SJVIA was offering them insurance essentially as a service. Within those agreements, as we've gone through this process, we have recommended your board changes to those agreements. And some of those have been brought to you, and those entities have brought forward some concerns as well. As we further looked at those, staff is recommending at this time that because we haven't had the opportunity of the new consultant to give us their thoughts and recommendations based on a model that is more efficient, that addresses some of the issues and concerns that we have, our recommendation is that we extend the current version of the agreements through the end of this fiscal year, giving us time to work with the new consultant and come back to your board with recommendations that include their input. And so that is the recommendation for this item today.
Sure, go ahead.
Just a general question. I don't know if we're looking to add any new members. I know we've lost a whole lot of members. The one thing I would suggest is if we keep the current agreement that we have in place, that we don't look to add anyone until we take a look at modifying the agreements that we've had in the past. So I know that's kind of difficult to imagine us adding someone at this point, but you never know what's going to happen 3-4 months down the road. So that would be my only recommendation at this time.
Staff agrees. We recommended that, and the board approved a moratorium on growth until we get through this process.
And just a general question I would have, it may not be specific to this item, but with Sutter County leaving, does staff have any idea what they're leaving for? What are they going to, basically, is my question.
My understanding, because they put this, it's public on their board agenda website, is they went to CSAC EIA, and they went to CSAC EIA for essentially the same rates. However, I understand they have a guarantee of a not-to-exceed percentage increase in future years. I think it's about 9%, if I'm not mistaken. I will say this to the board. As you may recall, a meeting or two ago, Sutter County came and asked for their claims information. And one of the discussions we had with the board is, in doing that, usually the reason that's asked for is to go market to look at other options. So there's a good and bad side to that. It sometimes contributes to the instability of the JPA. It appears that's what they did, and they went to CSAC EIA. So they did send it. They didn't tell us that beyond the letter that they sent that we've seen that they were terminating. And I think it's the guarantee in the future that probably drew them. But there is no change in rates for them moving to.
And I think that point is very, very well made. I mean, the SJVIA is bleeding right now. We have some problems that I think that we can address, and our new consultant will help us go in a long ways towards addressing those problems. But I also want to say that the SJVIA is clearly doing something okay. If an entity that's leaving our organization to go to a new option is getting the same rates, only with a cap guaranteed in the future, I think that says a lot about the potential and the reason that we formed this organization in the first place. So I think there are some changes that we can implement and really change the direction this is moving on. Director Magsig.
Yeah, Nathan's fine. So just a quick comment looking at it from the city's perspective, because as the mayor of Clovis, I believe, joined in 2015. And what really drew the city of Clovis to the SJVIA back in 2014 was we were taking a look at our rate structure and what we were paying, and what the SJVIA offered at that time, I believe, was a 25% discount from our lowest possible option. And we, jumped at the opportunity to get involved. And, what caused us to have concerns in 2016 was the fact that we were looking at, a 26% increase, which is all public information. And so one thing which is kind of interesting to me, listening to what's happening now with some of our other members going the route of having other entities provide insurance for them, is I want to make sure that, in the grand scheme of things, that there's not some gaming taking place where people are trying to draw members in by lowering rates for a couple of years and then really nailing them, on that third and fourth year. And to the extent that we have the ability to control that as an entity is valuable, but looking at what's happened to us in 2016, or this entity in 2016 and 2017, is concerning. So, I just wanted to throw that out there, because what this body had to offer cities, specifically the city of Clovis, was awesome in 2014 and 15.
But
Paul, can you comment further on that CSAC policy or program cap?
My understanding, this is just from the agenda item that they put on their website, is that there was reference to a guarantee of a not-to-exceed increase in future years. And I understand that was approximately 9%. And I'll verify that, but I believe it was approximately that amount.
And the entity itself would shoulder any overage?
No. So I think your question is, do they have any risk? Is that what you're asking? Or?
Yeah.
No. So when they join, and frankly, it's a similar model to SJVIA. So CSAC EIA bears the risk. I think that's what you're asking. They don't join and then have some of the risk. It's very similar to SJVIA.
Yeah. So the CSAC IA would...
Excess Insurance Authority.
That's it. Would bear the risk if it went to 12%, for example.
That's correct.
The participating party would only have it 9%, and then the rest of the entity would be on the hook for the 3%.
That's correct. And to answer that, is it a business decision on their part to, Director Magsig's comment? I don't know the answer to that, but some of these JPAs could be doing that. I know the SJVIA has not lowered rates to gain people in and then up them later, but that could be part of what they're looking at. They think they may have enough reserves that once they're in, it adds to their buying power. That could be part of the strategy.
Director, well, I just overview of my observation, and in a brief conversation I know I had with the executive director of the Air Pollution Control District, which was also one of our members, not a member but a purchaser. I think it was the fact that we changed the makeup of how we calculated. So instead of a fully blended, then we went to a semi-blended, then we went to the last year where we went to, okay, you people who are not part of the original founding members, you're on. We're going to use you to calculate what your fees should be. And I think it was the uncertainty. It was the fact that we were sort of changing the rules of the game along the way that scared people away. Because we only charge what we charge. We're not making money, and we were only charging our expected expenses against expected revenues with not enough reserve, honestly. So there was no gaming on our part. In my estimation, our mistake was that whenever you have new members coming in, just like right now, we're talking about Sutter's Runout. Well, that means when they go to a new insurance company, they're just going to be paying premiums, but on those runouts, that's being borne by us. The new company, the new insurance company, has that honeymoon, if you will, of those first few months of having revenues coming in and not having a corresponding expense going out. Well, we should have had the same idea at the time. When people came in, we should have been putting aside reserves for that outcome if we weren't going to contractually obligate them to pay those runouts. But I think it was the uncertainty. I think it was also the size of the increase. I mean, because we went a long time with very, very small increase, and all of a sudden this huge increase. And I think there was a fear, well, if it's this big this year, how big will it be next year? And so I think it was a combination of those uncertainties that probably led to many people leaving, even if it was the same price. Because who's to say it's not 26% this year and won't be 25% next year? So the guarantee of the 9% looked like a risk. It was a risk assessment, I think, probably on their part, and they said, "Well, we'll take that. That's a lesser risk than staying with this organization because we have not proven to be real good in that area." So that's my general observation.
And just to comment, I heard the same, and I think obviously the SJVIA is in transition. I think the new consultant and a clear direction and strategy from staff of the board as to where we're headed could bring stability, and I think where we go from here. The consultant, I'm excited, frankly, as I think the two board members who are on the interview panel are, about some of the ideas that they brought forward, but we need them and we need them fast. And so, you'll be hearing about those very soon.
All right, thank you very much. This is an action item. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for action. This is just a request to extend.
Extension.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion by Director Borges. Second by Director Worthy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to move on to item number 14, which is a request to approve staff recommendation to enter into an agreement for actuarial services.
Good morning, Board. Lawrence Seymour again, Auditor Treasurer. As you're aware, when we prepare our financial statements for SJVIA, there's something called IBNR, or incurred but not reported, that gets estimated by an actuary and gets booked to the financial statement so that they are fairly stated and you can calculate an accurate net position. So as a result of the requirements to have this study done in order to prepare financial statements, auditor's office staff working with personnel from both departments conducted an RFQ for those services, and we received a single responsive bid. The bid, I can say, was responsive, and they demonstrated the quality and ability to do the study, and therefore is our recommendation that we enter into negotiations to develop an agreement to bring them on board to get that number, that study performed so that we can continue moving forward on our financial statements.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Just real quick. So again, period of time that this was put out for people to respond to our RFP, how long was it?
Approximately 6 weeks.
And we advertised in the paper, used other sources to try to make sure it was circulated widely?
What we did is we worked with the then current vendor. We reached out to risk management from both counties and basically created as exhaustive a list as we could of agencies within the state of California that perform these kinds of services. The responses that we got back were that many of them do something that is very similar to the study that we need, but not exactly the same. A lot of them are they do OPEB studies, which stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, i.e. some counties, agencies may guarantee health insurance to their members in retirement. If you do, just like the pension liability that we all now have on our balance sheet, you would do a study to determine the long-term liability that you've incurred as members earn that retirement health provision, and then it gets booked as a liability on your financial statement. So they do that, but they don't do incurred but not reported for insurance agencies. And we got that response back from about 7 or 8. We actually, in addition to risk management, we searched online ourselves. We reached out to a number of audit firms to see if they had experience with any actuaries, and, is what it was.
Any questions or comments additionally? This is an action item. Any questions or comments regarding actuarial services? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for direction.
I'll move for staff's recommendation.
Okay. Motion by Director Magsig. Second by Director Crocker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes unanimously. All right, now we're going to move on to item number 15, which is a request to approve and authorize the President to sign an agreement with the law firm of Best and Krieger, LLP.
The purpose of this agreement is that the services provided by the General Counsel for the JPA are general, and what Best and Krieger can provide are specialized services, particularly relating to health benefits and litigation. Those are beyond the scope of what our offices are able to provide to the SJVIA. So this agreement is a general agreement, and the way it would work is if services are needed, then General Counsel will engage Best and Krieger for these services through a separate letter. And to find this firm, we looked at a variety of firms with reputation for what they can provide in this area. We reached out to 5 of them. 2 of them said, no, we're not able to help you for various reasons. We interviewed 3 firms, and of the 3 we interviewed, this firm we believe has the best team for the value. There would be essentially 2 teams within their firm that would work with us, one that specializes in health care benefits and one that specializes in litigation. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions?
Not a question, but just a comment.
I figured the attorneys would ask.
Yeah, well, my experience with something like this is I think it's appropriate that we would go out and do this, but I also would encourage us to have a very strong hand in making sure we keep a tight tab on their hours and timing.
Absolutely.
Because I've been there before, and it's like you wake up the next day and you go, what happened? We already got $10,000. I don't even see a piece of paper in my hand. So just making sure that we take very good heed in terms of making sure we don't spend a whole lot of time educating them. I mean, they should be able, if they're experts, they should be able to sort of hit the ground running. It shouldn't take $10,000 of education. That's my point.
Attorneys are like leeches. They just suck that blood right out of you, right?
I've seen it happen. And by the time you get them cut off, it's like you already owe them $20,000.
Coming from an attorney, that's fantastic. Go ahead, other attorney.
I think he was going where I was going to go, is making certain that there's price containment, scope of work containment. These dollar amounts, are these based on a locale?
Which dollar? Are you talking about the hourly rates?
Hourly rates.
The hourly rates, because this firm has offices in Los Angeles and D.C., so on and so forth. So are they giving us a Central Valley rate, or what?
This is their public entity discounted rate. That's what this is.
Discounted rate. Oh, good.
What's been the discount?
And Diana, I don't recall.
Hourly, they didn't give us.
Yeah, to give comparison, one of the other firms that we talked to that had higher rates than this, they were about double. So we believe this is a much better value.
Okay. Seriously, I'm thinking about going into business.
in healthcare law. You know what? I'll be honest. I know these rates are definitely high, but I got to tell you, if we're going into any kind of litigation situation, 1, you want an expert, and 2, you want someone who can fight damn well on your behalf. And I think that we're going to get that with this group. And I appreciate counsel going through the process and going through the interviews and getting us someone that can be a real winner for us.
And just so I'm clear, I don't think these rates are very high. What I think, though, is that paralegal and litigation analyst rates seem high.
That was what I thought, too. The general counsel rates are pretty reasonable.
The hired guns are not at a high rate. It's just the support staff, and that's where most of the work is done.
You know, that's a conversation we had in the interview with the partners of this firm, is how much work gets shifted to those folks at the bottom end, which does look high. And their response was, first, that they try to make sure that only work is done by those folks that is appropriately done by those folks, and that they're not given work to grind on. And then our intention also, if you look at the provision in the agreement with respect to billing, there are some limitations in there about block billing and requiring certain detail in the statement. So our intention is to keep a close eye on what is happening there. And if those low-level folks do appear to be grinding, then we would push back, certainly.
Okay. This is an action item.
Is there arbitration?
That's fine. No problem.
Is there any public comment regarding this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Move approval.
Let's move.
Have a motion by Director Worthley, a second, almost in song-like terms, by Director Borges. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to move on to item number 16, which is a request to receive an update on previous direction regarding emergency room and live health online copay changes.
During our last meeting in December, as we discussed our rising costs of claims, and I believe Anthem, Dan Sager, and Sandy Blackie presented information regarding ways that we could mitigate some of our rising costs. There were 2 specific issues that were discussed by the board, and that was our cost of emergency room visits and the copay for that, And the concept was, what would be the impact if we would increase the copay, and would it help to discourage unnecessary visits to the emergency room, with the idea of trying to send our employees or their family members to regular doctor visits or to walk-in clinics, which usually cost much less to the entire plan. The other item that was looked at and discussed was our Live Health online and the copay for that, and at the same time trying to decrease that copay, driving members to use online healthcare where they're on their phone or their computer, they're talking to a physician or a practitioner, and the cost for the copay for that could be reduced with the idea of driving the members towards that use for very minor types of medical needs that would cost substantially less to our plan. Anthem has been doing some research since the last meeting, and it's provided some information which both counties will be meeting on Wednesday. We, as individual counties, meeting with the Anthem team on not only these two areas but other cost mitigation areas. Fresno County did bring it to their health plan advisory group and had a discussion. Tulare County, we do not meet with our health plan advisory group until the 15th of February to talk to our members about that. Mr. Nerlin has some information and handouts on emergency usage costs that we'd like to hand out as.
And real quick, just want to make sure that we're very clear. This is a request to receive an update. This is not taking action, and that before anything is done, each respective entity will be going through the meet and confer process prior to action. Is that correct?
Correct. As
Okay,
the SJVIA, you are not required to go through meet and confer. As individual members that may have agreements with their bargaining associations, both the County of Fresno and the County of Tulare may go through the meet and confer processes with their unions. Today's action or request was an update and also to affirm where this board would like us as staff to work with our new consultant and with Anthem on some of the items and bring that back in the future. The handout that you received, and I believe you received two of them, and I'll speak to the first handout is SJVIA 2016 emergency room usage, and this is a summary of data done by Anthem from November 2015 through November 2016. It includes all plans, and it shows how much under the SJVIA we have paid for emergency room services and for the types of conditions and what the emergency room charges were for those types of conditions, such as the first item, an ingrown nail. The emergency room charge was close to $1,200. That is an issue that probably, and physical issue that could have been resolved at a doctor's office or potentially at a walk-in clinic at much less cost. And as you go down the list, there are some conditions that may have required going to the emergency room, but other conditions, again, that could have been less costly to the overall SJVIA plans, and then to the individual counties, agencies, and members who are paying in premiums for those claims and those costs. On the second page, we've also listed Anthem listed information on the top 5, I think, or 5 hospitals and what the average cost for an emergency room visit. And as this shows, the highest cost was Valley Children's Hospital at over $2,000 a visit, going down to the lowest cost at $1,118 was Adventist Medical Center. But that's per visit. So when you're looking at a high level of emergency room usage, that adds up very quickly for our plans and our costs.
Rhonda, before you leave that, CWIA it says 1,300 to 3,100. So is there some kind of an average or something that would give us a better number? That's that's a little bit. That's a wide range.
I don't know if Anthem, if Dan or Sandy would be able to speak to that information.
Hi, Dan Sager at Anthem Blue Cross. So, to answer your question, the range, that was simply the range that we saw on the data when we ran it. So we didn't actually take an average. We can go back and average it out if you want, but that's just from the low point to the high point of those claims in the ER that we were seeing at that facility.
I'm just more than curious because obviously that has a major impact for Tulare County, and it doesn't really tell me anything because I mean, on the one hand, when I first saw it, I said, "Wow, 1,300, that's a pretty good deal." Then I saw up to 3,100.
Yeah,
and is it weighted more towards the 3,100 or more towards the 1,300? I mean, that makes a huge difference in terms of the actual cost.
We're happy to go back through and average it out.
I appreciate it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Wait till you see when I get that.
Thanks.
Yeah, if I can just add to what Rhonda said, so I did have the opportunity at Fresno County to meet with our Health Benefits Advisory Council and obtain their feedback. Most of the feedback we received at that body from our labor groups was the mid-year component of it was their biggest concern. I think there's interest in making changes to affect the bottom line, but most of the concern that I heard, and I think some of them are here today, was doing it mid-year. That was a major concern. And so they were, not only recommending against it, but, and I'll share with some of them, we have a Health Benefits Advisory Council agreement where we usually handle all benefit changes, but it does say, and for the groups that are here, that it doesn't preclude meeting and conferring if they choose to do so afterwards. And so that would be the process in which we would continue if we were to implement this. So the question and direction today is a question of timing, whether we want to continue on a timeline of doing it as soon as possible or do this in concert with the new consultant with broader changes that could take effect next year. Keep in mind, even if we go through the meet confer process, once we do it, and we still have to notice every single participant 60 days before it takes effect. And so you've got a pretty long time before it will actually take effect, even if we get direction today to move forward. So this is also a request for your direction as to when to do it, and just making sure I share what I heard from labor when I met with them last week.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. As a member of this board and as the chairman of the Fresno County Board, it is my intent that these changes would take place after meeting with our respective labor groups with all of the other changes that may come forward, as you quite frankly said, Paul, in consultation with our new consultant. Timing is of the issue. I don't foresee any of taking place this year, but taking place at our this fiscal year. I see it taking place at our next enrollment period so that people, when they enroll in their plans, will see what's coming to them. However, if we don't get started at some point, we never have enough time to implement these changes. So I believe we're simply doing our due diligence and preparing what we believe of a change of the future is coming, but I don't foresee it happening in midstream either. So I know we received several letters last night or late in the hour as to the concern with the changes. However, I believe those fears are a little bit premature because, as stated, we do have to meet with our labor reps, and I don't see any changes until the next plan years come out.
My sense, if I can just clarify, sorry to interrupt, is just that if the direction was to do this, you're right. It does take a lot of time to do this.
It's a process, yeah.
Process, and I sense that there was interest in partnership of doing other things too, in addition to this, with a consultant. That if they knew it was the new plan year, that would assuage. If that is your board's direction today, that would help some of those concerns. That's.
I would just concur with everything that was said by Supervisor from Fresno County, and the only thing I was going to add is that anecdotally, my wife's policy through a school district has gone to this very thing about on-call from $15 down to $5. So it's being done elsewhere also, and you can see why. And that's, frankly, it's a wonderful service because you don't have to sit around take off time from work and go to a doctor's office, and you can call 24 hours a day, and it's very effective. And for most of our illnesses, it does what you need to do, and it's a great way to go. So.
And I think in looking at these charges, I don't see anyone who could come forward and state that these charges are reasonable. These are ridiculous amount of charges for an ingrown nail of $1,100 when you could go to an urgent care any day of the week and take care of that for a lot less cost. To go for a headache at $3,000 is ridiculous. As to why someone would go into the emergency room rather than to an urgent care, I just don't see that. And so something does need to be done to encourage behavior to go to the appropriate venue and not use the ER like a doctor's office. Fresno County has already contributed $5 million above premium, and we can't keep going like this. Something needs to be done, and I believe this is an appropriate step in order to do that, and it will go through the process.
I would only add that I think doing that with our labor groups, we send. I can't tell you how much we sent out to encourage use of that Live Health Online. But I also would say that our labor groups joining us in messaging those things, and some of them have said they'd be interested in doing that, will only help us to get that out. And so labor groups that are here that are listening, I think that'll only help in doing this. Because education, creating the structure and the plan design is one thing, but the education is another key part. And those that are here, I know there's many who are willing to help with that, and we ask you for that.
Well, I was just going to comment that I just think it's nuts that it costs $3,000 to fix diarrhea. Usually when I have diarrhea, it's just Pepto-Bismol or something. It's calms. I'm kidding. But really, you took my point though, Paul. It's my point was going to be that it's messaging. It's about education. I don't even know if the general public realizes the difference between an emergency room visit on average is going to cost $2,000 versus going to a health clinic at being around $100. I mean, that's insane. And I just don't know if the general public knows that, but specifically within our workforce, because we drive our own claims. It's not someone else driving the claims. We drive our own claims. And education outreach from the HR side and from our employee bargaining group side is just critical. We have to do a better job of educating our workforce. And, is it a problem? Well, when you have an emergency, you need to go to an emergency room. That's not even a question. But I really doubt that there were $6.4 million worth of true emergencies throughout the county. I'm not a doctor, but throughout our SJVIA. So it's education, outreach, and I think we can do a much better job of that.
And I would like to thank Anthem for kind of drilling down and providing the information. I look forward to meeting them, as I'm sure Fresno does this week. I understand they have a very lengthy report, and we're going to be looking at it in detail of other aspects where we might be able to lower our costs on our claims side.
Any other comments from board members? I do have 2 requests to speak to this item. One request is from Bobby Bloyd.
Good morning, Board. Bobby Bloyd, Chairman for the Fresno County Health Benefits Advisory Council. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of issues. One, we did discuss this in detail in the Health Benefits Advisory Council. I think the Board received some letters in regards to that, and unfortunately it was portrayed that this may be a mid-year change in the Health Benefits Advisory Council. Some of the misinformation there may have been in that regards. 2, we were passed out an Anthem spreadsheet that details the last couple of years of trends compared to commercial benchmark. The commercial benchmark for avoidable ER cost is $8.25 per member per month. We averaged last year $7.61. The number of visits per 1,000 is commercially at 95.5, and we were at 77.3. And I'd offer to pass that out for everybody if you'd like to see it. A couple of other things that have come up is the Health Benefits Advisory Council is willing to look at all possible options for cost savings in the future plan year. That's been a traditional method of working to try to overcome cost savings and measures to save money. One thing I'd like to point out, and we brought up in the Health Benefits Advisory Council, if an individual goes down and has a small outpatient surgery for whatever reason, and they are prescribed typically pain medicine for after the fact of pain control for that outpatient surgery. Several people that I've spoken to have gone down to the pharmacy to try to fill those prescriptions, and they find out whenever they get to the pharmacy that a prior authorization is required to get pain medicine. Well, anybody that's been in pain knows that if you don't keep the pain in control after the surgery, it's very hard to get it back under control without hospital-applied pain control medicines. So typically what happens is they go down to the pharmacy to pick up the prescription, and they find out that it's going to require prior authorization, 2-day wait. A lot of employees don't have 2 days to wait to get their pain medicine and pain level back under control. So their only option at that point is to go to the ER, going back to their primary care, going to an online care, going to urgent care is not going to get them the relief they need. So there are other areas that we need to address and take into account of cost savings measures. So I would hope that we can all work together. Everybody is mindful of the financial situation that we're in. We all want to come to some methods through education, outreach to individuals to tell them about all these other services, but we all have to work together, and there's some things that are going to have to change on both sides to make it so we can all work together. Thank you.
Okay, next request I have is from Ocio Segura. You didn't wear your Kaiser t-shirt today, OC, so.
Good morning, gentlemen. The reason I'm here, I'm here to advocate for our members, and I just want to say that we need to stay the course with our plan. And like some of you have said, if we're looking at doing stuff, it needs to be done next year during this year during open enrollment. And we are, again, having to have people make decisions whether to pay your rent or take your child to the ER. It's not a very good decision. I would hate to see somebody's child get sick and the person not having the $250 will not take the child, and somebody end up dying because we're saying, hey, you know what, don't use the ER. And here I go with the Kaiser thing again. I've been with Kaiser forever. When I go to the ER, they do triage, and if it's not an emergency, they either send me upstairs or they make me an appointment the next day. Why isn't Anthem in their wisdom trying to follow some of the things? I know they don't like Kaiser, but come on. If it's going to make it better, we need to start looking at some of the things that they do to deliver better services. And another thing, nobody wants to go to the emergency room and throw away $100 right now and spend 5-6 hours with your sick child or your wife or your husband. We've been working together in the subcommittee with Keenan and trying to look at different things on how to reduce all this cost. And one of the things we've been pushing for is a wellness program that hasn't come to fruition because we're moving too slow on this thing. We've talked about doing clinics, worksite clinics, which some counties have, Kings County, but we're being told, well, that's not a good idea. So a lot of our ideas that are coming from labor at the subcommittee, we're being told, well, that's not a good idea, or it's going to cost too much money. But if it's in the long run, it's going to reduce money. Why aren't we looking at these things? Seems like we're a subcommittee for nothing. Same thing with the HVAC. A lot of good things come out of this committee, but eventually you guys do whatever you guys want. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, I have a request from Tanaya Johnson.
Good morning, Tania Johnson, Regional Director for SEIU Local 521. I represent workers in the County of Fresno as well as working with the County of Tulare as well now. And I appreciate your acknowledgement. We did send a letter to not only Fresno County but Tulare County just about our concerns about this issue as it was brought to the HVAC as well as the subcommittee. And I do have a copy of that. Well, I thought I did. If you have not seen it, not sure who to give it to. Thank you. So now that my time is waning, I won't spend much time talking about our concerns. We appreciate your acknowledgement of the meet and confer process. We appreciate your acknowledgement of, depending what direction you take, that this is at least saying this is not something that may happen this current plan year and that you will go through the processes with labor. I just wanted to point out some things that we heard from workers and that I've heard in the conversation here. We absolutely agree. Education and outreach, that is what's missing. But I will say this, since we have been working in the HVAC subcommittee and trying to find ways to work together, anytime anything is printed in the wellness newsletters that County of Fresno does or that we hear about in our HVAC committee, we are over-communicating that in our newsletters, on our social media pages, and trying to educate workers. And so we are trying to align ourselves with the topics in which the county presents, and so that we're having a united front, and because we both have a stake in this game, because either employees are going to pay more in premiums, right, or the SJVIA is going to continue to be in debt, counties are going to have to continue to earn more money. I do agree that we need to be bolder and we need to take more affirmative action. It kind of feels like we're crawling in the subcommittee, and we need to establish a wellness program with benchmarks so we have somewhere to start from. Now we're looking at, oh, here's what we tried, but without any benchmarks to look at for the next plan year, my fear is we're going to be in the same boat. So I am just urging that in these wellness committees, as you have a new consultant, that we really do get more bolder and more aggressive at making changes, but that we don't do that on the backs of employees who in open enrollment, which is their only time to choose plans, saw that there was a copay of $100, and they made choices, as you know, based on their finances and what they could afford. We appreciate the moves that have been made so far, but the question that comes to my mind in my last 30 seconds is, have we done an analysis of where those avoidable ER visits came from? Are they from some of the small cities that have left you? Is this really going to produce a cost savings if the folks that were utilizing that service that could have used something else are no longer with you? Let's continue to work together, but let's not forget that workers are the ones that are bearing this cost, even for the run-out claims. So we need to be aggressive, and I appreciate the conversation here, and thank you.
The next request is from Laura Hernandez.
Good morning, Board of Directors. My name is Laura Hernandez. I work for the county. I work for the Child Support Department, and my job is to ensure that the children of Tulare County have the financial support they need from their parents. As you know, I work to try to ensure children have the needs taken care of. And today I'm here because I did learn recently that that was one of the considerations to increase the emergency room copays. So you see, back in 2015, I did end up in the emergency room. It wasn't by choice. I was declined by the urgent care, and so they sent me off to the emergency room. Did I want to go there? God, no, I did not. I spent 5 hours in there and was dreading the bill. That's what I was really dreading, that bill. So I thought it was just going to be $100. Great, okay, maybe I can manage that. But you know what? My bill was $1,200. Apparently, I hadn't met my deductible, and so I had to pay that. So my bill was not just $100. Now, it did take me over a half a year to pay that off, to pay the emergency room visit and the physician visit, because apparently they don't go together. So I had to pay about $800 for the physician visit. So what did I learn? I learned that I need to make sure that I am educated in all the resources that are available. And being here today, I understand that that's one of the goals, is to ensure that we have some kind of outreach and educational effort to ensure that individuals such as myself are aware of what the real cost of the emergency visit is, and that, God forbid, my children ever have to go to the emergency room. Mind you, my emergency visit wasn't during my doctor's regular hours. It was after hours. Luckily, because of all the educational efforts so far that the county has put in place, I have lost 12 pounds, And I haven't been to the emergency room because apparently I was anemic and I had other issues. Had I not been to the emergency room that day, I wouldn't have learned that I had some other issues to worry about. So I was very fortunate. So today I'm here just to ensure that you guys consider educational outreach efforts as a positive way to ensure all county employees can take charge in some way to ensure that we don't incur these costs. Looking at all these costs, I realized that, yeah, this was me. I was only maybe about 15 to 20 minutes with the actual doctor. The rest of the time, I was out there in the waiting room area. Trust me, it's not where I want to be, and it's not where I want to see other county employees spend their time.
Probably never thought you'd have to pay so much money to wait, huh?
No, no, never making that visit again unless I'm completely bleeding and dying. But, you know, and so today I hear everything you guys are talking about and just want to encourage you to please consider that as an educational outreach effort.
Thank you for your comments. Next, I have Mark Cardoza.
Hello, and I wish the road equipment operator, County of Fresno, Stationary Engineers, Local 39 Union. But main thing I want to say, thank you to the chairman and to the board for respecting the meet and confer process. Very thankful, because it was being impressed upon us that it may not be respected. And the only other item, or only other thing I wish to say is that the Kaiser system of the emergency room visits, if it starts to turn down with the triage, but also they counsel and they explain to the people, patients, the urgent care clinics, and then even if eventually you want to do a carrot and a stick thing where, you know, hey, this is what you can do, but if you go the other route, then there will be increased costs or something to that effect. The only concern I have is about children, because some of these kids with asthma and stuff, you can't hesitate. So all I want to do, main thing is say thank you, and education. Use Kaiser as a resource. They're here. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board. I do have to say that the board just was really proud of an idea that he had, and then he bounces to go to the bathroom. So I don't know if we should sit here and wait until he gets back so we can hear his genius idea, or anybody else want to talk? Go ahead.
Filling in space for him, no. I just want to say that I think that the idea of doing a comprehensive plan, we were looking at some stopgap type things, and what we were looking at is something which is more standard in the industry. We found ourselves being not in the average, as it turned out, for our $100 deductible visits or cost share expenses. But I do think we need a comprehensive plan, and there was a point made by one of the speakers that I've run into this too, and that is, you can go to an urgent care, and then sometimes I think it's all about this liability-driven life that we have. They say, well, I don't know if we can handle this. I think you should go to the emergency room. And they sent, and I remember one time I had a car accident, and I finally just kind of put my foot down and says, I don't want to go to the emergency room. I just want you to check me out. I feel fine. But the immediate reaction from them was, you've been in an automobile accident. We think you should go to the emergency room. So they really tried to push me there. Anyway, and the other thing I will say, another kind of interesting thing that happens is my daughter had to go to the emergency room because of something that I did that was rather stupid and hit her in the head. Not personally, but what we were working on. And we went to the paramedics and thought maybe they might just look her over, and they said, well, you need to go to the emergency room. And oh, by the way, if you go and walk in, you'll probably be sitting there for 5 hours. But if we take you by ambulance, you'll probably see somebody in about 30 minutes. So that's what we did. But think about the added cost of taking her. We drove her to the paramedics, but so they took her to the hospital in the ambulance so that she wouldn't have to wait 5 hours to see somebody. So these are some of the other kind of cost drivers that we need to address, not only with our employees, education is part of it, but also with the providers. We know if someone shows up at urgent care, are they going to be seen by urgent care? Are they going to push them off to the emergency room? again, so just some thoughts about some of the things that do drive these costs, and sometimes it's not what you anticipate. So presenting yourself at the urgent care center doesn't always result in an urgent care taking care of your problem.
All right, so we've all been waiting for Andreas' idea, so go ahead. You took off and went to the bathroom, and we had to just talk to fill time, so go ahead. We've been waiting in anticipation.
Boy, it's not that interesting, but one of the speakers gave a testimony on her experience, and it kind of got me thinking. I don't know if this is legally permissible, procedurally permissible, or even if the board would be interested in. But our philosophy is to try to encourage folks to use the clinics, right? Not go to the emergency room. What if in the copay that is being proposed from $100 to $250 is to try to discourage going straight to the emergency room? But under those circumstances where individuals are referred by the clinic, would we then not be consider dropping that back down to 100? So, one, you want to keep the 250 moving forward, so you want to discourage folks, but those that actually do make the attempt but are referred, that it drops back down to 100.
I hear that, and maybe the other question, and this may be a plan design question we'll have to talk about with Anthem Blue Cross. A lot of this is the coordination of that with the contracts they have with the hospitals, but a different copay for call it an avoidable ER visit versus those that are not. That could be a interesting determination of what is avoidable and what's not, but that's certainly something we can ask about. The other comment I would make is the speaker that was up a moment ago talked about a lot of expenses, and some of you might have wondered, how did that happen if our copay is only $100? And I don't know this for a fact, but perhaps you're in a high deductible health plan. And so just a reminder to some that are listening, we have some of our employees that are in high deductible health plans for which this copay does not apply. So just to clarify that too. So they would have to meet their deductible first, and it's a different scenario for them.
And my last question is, there's a letter here from SEIU having some concern about the 100 to 250 rate increase. Can you comment on what Fresno County did to help out with the insurance coverage for its employees?
So in addition to the $5 million that have been put into the SJVI that would have been charged to employees if we hadn't done that, to cover the increased cost, which for the employee only was about $50 approximately for HMO, the county covered that cost. So that was a pretty significant cost for the county, but that's what they did for all employees of the county of Fresno to deal with that large increase. And
what was the full amount of the contribution from the county if each got 50?
That's $283 per employee per month. So that was this was the biggest jump that we've had since I've been here to cover that cost. And that was a big decision of the board, and I know employees appreciated that, but it was a big expense to do so.
And what was the full value of the expense to Fresno County?
About a net county cost, it was about $1.5 million.
Thanks.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we will now adjourn in open session and convene for item 17 in closed session. Thank you for attending today's meeting. Our next meeting is... Paul?
It is April 28th.
April 28th.
That is back in Fresno.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Thank you for attending today. Have a nice weekend.
It'll be at the old building. So.
Go Falcons.